everyone. Welcome to the Carson City School District Board of Trustees meeting. Today is Tuesday, March 11, 2025, and we are going to call this meeting to order at 6:30 p.m. And we'll start off with agenda item number 1, adoption of the agenda as submitted, and this is for possible action.
Second.
Okay, so motion by Trustee Walker, second by Trustee Varner. Any board discussion? Seeing none. Any public comment? Seeing none. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Agenda item number 2, flag salute by Trustee Wall. Thank you, Trustee Wald. And at this moment, I am going to ask everyone to join me for a moment of silence for one of our students who passed away last week. If you can please join me for a moment of silence. Thank you. We are sending the family our deepest condolences. And just as a reminder, if anyone is in need of emotional support, we recommend that you call our counseling office, and we will have the counselors and our staff, our team, provide the support necessary. Okay, so agenda item number 3, superintendent's report, and this is for information only. Superintendent Feeling.
Thank you, President Ramirez. So we have some guests here this evening, but I want to start with a quote. It's a great quote. A Greek philosopher, there's several of them, but Aristotle once said, we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence is thus not an act, but a habit. And the Carson High bowling program has a pretty good habit of excellence, winning the High Desert Interscholastic Championship 18 of the last 22 years. I don't know what happened in those other 4, but we can work on it. But tonight we have some friends from the bowling team. Our rep from Carson High School, Mr. Patrick Tobin, is here, and coaches Ron Pasquale and Danny Dunbar. Ron and I actually go way back in the bowling world, so he's an old friend of mine. But if you guys would want to come up and maybe talk a little bit about what happened, just come up here and. Oh,
Yeah, if you can please use the microphone.
Should I sit?
no, whatever you want.
I got to do stand-up? Okay. Thank you for having us. We appreciate the invitation. I just have a couple prepared statements about this bowling team. The young men and the coaches through the last 4.5, almost 5 months, have shown superior dedication, sportsmanship, and community and camaraderie in the team. The dedication has been both inside and outside of the classroom. The students have worked very hard with their teachers and with their coaches. The dedication is shown tonight, and so many of the bowlers are competing in a league night, which has, I believe, scholarship ramifications. They put in at least 98, maybe 100 hours just on the lanes alone this year. For the sportsmanship, I got to say, I was a part of a championship football team in high school. I've never seen sportsmanship to the level as I have this year. These young men and women, never heard one negative word ever. And the other teams we would bowl against, all of whom they beat, they were very nice, high fives, right? Displaying the type of pride and attitude we try to teach at Carson High and the Carson City School District. I'm very proud of all their sportsmanship, congratulating other teams, congratulating each other. And then I mentioned it one day at practice. The team work is also very superior. Again, never a negative word. And I'm not exaggerating. Not one negative word from one team member ever about each other, about any of the adults, about high school. This is one of the greatest teams I've ever been a part of in my life. These young men and women did a great job this year. I'm very proud to have the time with them. As is tradition, before and after practice and meets, we kind of give it up to anybody that would like to say anything. So I would like to offer if any of the coaches would like to add anything. But in conclusion, this is one of the best teams I've ever seen. The sportsmanship, again, is something that's just superior.
Good evening. Thank you for having us tonight and taking the time to acknowledge our athletes' achievements with the Carson High School bowling team and its participation with the High Desert Scholastic Bowling Program. Thank you all for coming out tonight. We were very fortunate this year to have a very seasoned and mature team right out the gate, a very focused and devoted team, one that gave itself an identity of keeping its word, to seeing it through. This team stayed humble and grounded all season, never getting beyond its initial successes or the current competition at hand. Our only goal was always what was in front of us for the week, nothing more, nothing less. One competition at a time, one divisional playoff at a time, and then one championship, approached in the same for each match, getting us to the ultimate victory. That ultimate victory was an undefeated road to victory for every match, every playoff challenge, ending in a championship that was secured by the second round. The road to success with this team goes beyond just the CHS bowling program. There are students before athletes with their academics. This is a collective team that participates in Saturday morning coaching and then Saturday Youth League, scholarship tournaments throughout Northern Nevada, King of the Hill competitions, aside from our own high school practices. Those practices, some good, some bad, only highlighted the hard work they had to overcome improving their own personal game, dialing in their shots and fine-tuning their overall level of consistency, proving their dedication to the sport. Team spirit with the Carson High School team is a must. Our spirit and camaraderie have no equal to date within the HDIBP. We are all accountable for holding each other up in the face of bad shots or bad days, keeping a positive bond to our team. We never give up. We always see it through. This mantra is shared to others throughout the dedicated show of respect to others during competitions, that being during the HDIBP volunteers, opponents, their coaches, and setting a tone of respectful sportsmanship that oppose us, win or lose. In closing, I'd like to say how proud I am of this team and their accomplishments this season and what you have given back to us as your coaches and advisors. I'm proud of the coaching staff and support I've been surrounded with and the company I share with them almost daily. To the parents and here in attendance, I want you to know that your kids are my kids and having the relationships with them throughout the season have been nothing short of unforgettable, culminating an overall bond equivalent to family. Thank you for letting us have them each week for this season. I'm proud of you all. I love you all through thick and thin, and thank you for keeping your word to each other and giving us all something to hold so high, not only for yourselves, but your families, your school, and your community. Thanks.
Congratulations. Do we have another speaker?
Just real quick. So on behalf of the kids that are not here as well, like they had mentioned, we have a Junior King of the Hill program, which is a national qualifier for Green Bay, Wisconsin. So that's what they're back at the bowling alley doing at the moment right now is they're not practicing, they are qualifying to go back to Wisconsin over the summer, which is a week and a half long event. Scholarship money eligible. More so than that, there is a ton of colleges that are at this event looking at the bowlers to pursue for their collegiate bowling programs. So there's a ton of money in bowling for scholarship for kids to advance their education, which personally, at 5 years old, you start learning in bowling to get money to go to school, advance your education. There's not much else at that age that you can start doing that. So that's huge for these kids. Again, I personally would like to thank you guys for inviting us to come out here. It means a lot to these kids. Thank you guys so much.
Coach Dunbar, we have the kids introduce themselves, and maybe you could give us a high game for the year or something like that?
I'm Jack Peterson. I think my high game was like 230 something.
I'm Hannah Glisson, and my high game was a 182.
Wow.
I'm Emily Elsie. My high game was a 244.
I am Indiana basketball, and I believe my high game was something along the lines of 260 something or a high 250s.
My name is Caden Kemp, and I think my high game was around a 226.
Wow. Well, a huge round of applause again. Congratulations for your successful outcome. Board members, any comments?
I'll
Go ahead, Richard.
Congratulations. How many are seniors or juniors? We have one senior, so we should have another strong team next year, right? Great. Congratulations again. You guys did a great job, and all these wins, it's remarkable. So keep up the good work. Thank you. And hopefully this will help you with your education in the future with scholarship money.
Trustee Peterson?
I just want to make sure to say Rich's name out down there on the end too, Rich Sharp. He's been with the program. He hasn't had a kid in the league for years, but he shows up and he pours his heart into it, and he loves these kids beyond, probably not as much as their parents, but pretty dang close. And so I just want to make sure your name gets mentioned too, that you are very appreciated. All of you who sacrifice, you take time off of work to be a part of this team and dedicate so much time to helping these kids have an atmosphere to thrive in and to grow in and to build camaraderie and to support each other and challenge each other and to just shine. And so thank you for providing that opportunity for them. Couldn't do it without you.
Can you please grab the microphone?
I usually don't need that, but during the season we had one competition, which we won, but the kids weren't in it. We couldn't figure it out what was going on. So Danny pulled them all together and said, what do we need to improve on as a team and as yourself? And one of the team members came up with, we need to keep our word. And he heard it in Ron's little thing. That was our mantra. Keep our word, keep everybody's head up, keep the team concept going the whole way. And I think that's what kept us going through the playoffs. That made the difference in the whole thing. Was kind of cool. That one of the team members said, hey, we need to keep our word to ourselves, what we're doing. Thank you.
Wonderful. Go ahead, Trustee Walker.
I just want to thank you for one of the things that I think is so nice in our community is we make sure that all of our students know the various pathways to get to college and scholarships and other services that are available. And bowling is one of the things that, like for me, that was the first time I'm hearing about this. And so thank you for making sure that all of our students see that there's more ways to get scholarships than straight A's and excelling at sports that are football, team sports. So I think that that's great. So thank you.
The handlebar mustache threw me off. I haven't seen you in a while.
No, this is all coming off Saturday. That was another thing. They're shaving my head on Saturday.
Well, again, thank you so much for coming in. Again, congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Next item, we have another special guest this evening. If Miss Gina Hoppy would mind making her way up to the podium or the table. Miss Hoppy was chosen as our next principal for Eagle Valley Middle School. And so congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Feeling, and to all of you, board members. I'm truly honored to accept this position as principal of Eagle Valley Middle School. Beyond grateful for this opportunity and all the faith you all have in me to help lead such an amazing school. So I'm very excited for this new adventure. It's a little bittersweet leaving Fritch because I've been there for the better half of the last 2 decades. And I, consider the Fritch family as family of my own. And so it'll be hard leaving the staff and students. But like I said, I'm very excited for this next adventure. I do want to say a special thank you to Mr. Brown, who's been my mentor and friend and colleague, and took me on as his right-hand man during one of the most trying times during COVID. So thank you, Mr. Brown. I truly hope from the bottom of my heart that my replacement knows more movie lines than I do, because that way you can have a real conversation with somebody, because I don't know those movie lines. So hopefully that person does. And then to Dr. Conley, who's not here tonight, but he was a mentor to me in the past and is currently mentoring me as we make this transition. So I'm very grateful for him too. And then just, again, thank you for the opportunity and the trust and confidence you all have in me. So, yeah, I'm very excited. Yeah.
Well, if I may, congratulations, and a big loss for Fritch, but a big gain for Eagle Valley Middle School. So congratulations.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Anybody else? Go ahead, Richard. I think Richard.
Yeah, like I told you earlier, congratulations. We'll miss you at Fritz. I've always been impressed with what you and Mr. Brown have done at that school. It's very well run. And we will miss Mr. Conley, but we're looking forward to you taking over also. So thank you.
Thank you.
Mike?
Well, I just have to say congratulations. I'm so proud of you. And it's kind of funny because I'm seeing Minka Brown back there smiling, and I'm thinking, those nice Fritch teachers are going to be dealing with the Minka Browns of the world now. Seriously, though, I think you have a great future ahead of you, and I'm so proud of you. So thank you for what you do.
Thank you. There are a lot of people in this room who have helped shape me over the years. So I appreciate many people in this room, and I look forward to working with Greg Thetford. And again, yeah, I did speak to Lee Conley today, and he was picking up his wife at the airport tonight, so he couldn't make it. But yeah, again, I'm very excited and sad to be leaving Mr. Brown and Fritch, but excited for the new opportunities that lay ahead. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, congratulations again.
Thank you so much.
Just a couple more things. Yesterday and today, we had right here in this building some really special guests representing the Herbie Hancock Institute of Jazz. 5 of the top high school jazz musicians in the country. One was from Orlando, one was Chicago, one was Houston, one was Los Angeles, and I forget where the other one was from, but I mean, truly just spread out. And honestly, so we had on Monday, Carson High, the junior class was here, plus all the music, anyone who's participating in music at Carson High and Pioneer Campus. And then also, then today we had all the 8th graders from Eagle Valley and Carson Middle School, and then all kids that participate in music in those buildings. And I honestly, I was a little worried, just in my mind, my simple mind of it being jazz music. And I know jazz isn't a hugely popular music with kids sometimes. And it was fantastic. There was so much energy. The kids were so into it. They had also performing with them this guy who he's apparently considered the best saxophonist in the world. His name's Antonio Hart. He's won 14 Grammy Awards, and just phenomenal. There was a singer, Lisa Henry, brought a kid up on stage for both of the events and kind of put him on the spot and, hey, sing with me. But it was far beyond anything I expected. So I'm just so grateful. However we got chosen to be a part of that. And one thing I would say I really appreciate too, they called it an informance, where they were performing music, but they walked through the history of jazz, how it's an American music, born in New Orleans about 100 years ago. Talked about how like jazz music is actually like, showed a sheet of music and like here's kind of how we do it, and not I mean in a way that I think was a little engaging as well. But one of the key pieces is they tried to talk about how jazz represented so many of the American values that we hold dear, and one of them was democracy. And it was interesting because they talked about how, we value individualism, but you have a responsibility to the whole, and how jazz music, there's an underlying rhythm that's happening and everyone's responsible to that rhythm, but there's so much improvisation around that, and how you never really hear the same jazz tune twice, because every time it's always a little bit different. So I'm just very grateful, and just seemed to be really well received. And our kids were fantastic. It was loud, screaming, kids clapping, dancing. It was great. So, and last thing, last week was reading week. Although we have a couple stragglers still coming through. One of my favorite times of year, going into elementary classrooms and reading. And I have to, and it's one of my, I absolutely love doing that. I have so much fun with it. But one teacher at Empire kind of set me up. I have to call out Isabel Manzano on this, because we had a little time at the end. She said, "Oh, why don't you? I have one more book. Why don't you read this book?" And I don't know if any of you have ever read. It's called The Book with No Pictures. I had never heard of it. Had no clue what I was getting myself into, and I was laughing so hard, just belly laughs. I was crying. I was laughing so hard. So thank you to her for making that happen. It was great, and just had a really good time with the kids. So that is all I have for my report.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, I read that book too, and I was like, what is this? And the kids are like, oh my gosh, they were excited, they were screaming and everything. It was the most fun book I have ever written. Okay, very good. So we're going to go ahead and move on to agenda item number 4, and this is board reports, board member comments, and this is for information only. And we will start off with Carson High School representative. And do we have Diane Angad? No high school representative. Trustee Peterson, do you have the report? When we do have Pioneer, but do we want to hold off until we get to you? Yeah, let's go ahead and have Pioneer come up here. Caitlin Nguyen, if you could please come up.
Could I start off with a personal story as a junior who just went to the jazz concert yesterday? Okay, so I have this funny anecdote for you guys. When we were walking to the community center in the morning, it was like 9, and being teenagers, we slept even less. So we were all grouchy, we were all quiet, and we didn't want to do anything. And do you mind if I, am I like under NDA if I sing a little part of the musical number? I'm not that good, but one of the singers, she came up and she was like, every day, I got the blues, right? And then, like, I have never seen our juniors just light up like that, because we didn't have phones and we were just caught in the moment, and everyone was like singing. They were like bouncing around. I heard some people saying, sing it, girl, and stuff like that behind
how
me.
fun.
And then when we were walking back, it wasn't quiet, but guess what I did hear?
What
There were
did
some
you-
kids going, every day, I got the it was great. I loved it. Anyway.
Thanks for sharing that. That's awesome.
It was great, yeah. My name is Caitlin Nguyen, and I will be presenting Pioneer's announcements tonight. Pioneer Speech and Debate team just went to their final tournament of the year, which is a district tournament, on March 6th. Thanks to their representative efforts, we were able to be heard across the state. We are incredibly proud of them, and we're grateful for their efforts to show up every week and practice and show up to competitions consistently. If you would like to support our debate team, we are holding another Pioneer Panther Pizza Painting and Punch night at 5:30. It always gets me. Pioneer Panther Pizza Painting and Punch. Say that 5 times fast. I can't. At 5:30 p.m. this Thursday. All of the money that we raise will go towards their efforts to make it to nationals. This week, we're holding a You Matter week to promote school unity, and we wanted to send the message that you matter regardless of who you are and what demographics you belong to. So yesterday, we wore green to show support for mental health, and we made sticker vision boards. Today, we wore items representing us and made sensory bottles. On Wednesday, we're going to carry our school in anything but a backpack. Another funny story, I suggested bringing a microwave, but my mom was against the idea. She reminded me that ours was embedded in the walls, so I guess I'll just go with a grocery bag or something. But we will also wear teals to support those with anxiety or depression, and we're going to make dog toys for the Nevada Humane Society with recycled clothing at lunch. On Thursday, we're going to wear matching clothes with our friends, and we're going to take pictures for a You Matter collage to decorate the school. On Friday, we're going to wear a color that represents our emotions, and we had some leftover strings and beads from the Week of Kindness on February, so we're going to make some more friendship bracelets. Naturally, being a part of leadership, I got into the string early, and I made one for my mom. I know.
Oh, how cute. That's
I know.
awesome.
I'm amazing. But that's all. Thank you. This is Caitlin signing off.
Okay. Yes, of course.
I just love your energy. Kudos to you, and I'm sure you're going to go far. Mm.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. I always enjoy your presentations. They're entertaining and informational, so thank you. You do a great job.
Thank you, Caitlin. Okay, so we move on to Nevada Association of School Board, NASB updates. Trustee Warner?
Yeah, I really don't have much tonight. We had our legislative day, and then we had some training on Thursday, and I know that Trustee Walker's going to talk about the legislative day since he's president of NASB. But the training class we had on Thursday, we had 3 different speakers, and it was really a good day overall. And I really appreciate everybody who came out to attend the training, and we had a good turnout from all districts throughout the state. So that's all I have.
Great, thank you.
So it was a great day to collaborate with our colleagues in other school boards and also our legislative leaders. And in the morning, we had an opportunity to get a briefing from the governor's office. So it was nice to be part of that conversation. And one of the nice things was most of us were there. I had a meeting and Molly was kind of hanging out and she was like, "Oh, hey, I don't have anything to do." I said, "Well, come to this meeting with me." And so I think we actually had a really great conversation in that meeting. So it was a nice environment where we were all collaborating with each other and others around the state. And it just kind of reminds you that we're all kind of in doing the same work. And it's just it kind of re-energizes you. And the second day I had a meeting at work I couldn't quite get out of, but I showed up about lunchtime just in time for Spencer's presentation. And of course, I was sitting right in front of him, and he actually knocked it out of the park. And I told AJ, I actually laughed at a couple of his jokes this time. So Spencer actually did a great job. So thank you to his leadership. And, we have with NASB, when we have our professional development, there's some competencies that we ask all of our presenters to incorporate. And I think he really did a great job giving us an activity with the budget to really dig deep and gain understanding into kind of those different categories in our budgets. And so I think that helped many school boards across the state. So thank you to him. I wish he was here to hear it in person.
If I could add one thing to
Please.
the NASB report. I also wanted to thank Mr. Walker because he did, him and the executive director from NASB did a presentation in front of the legislature to kind of give an overview of what NASB is and who's all involved in it. And Mike, you did a very good job on that presentation, so thank you.
Thank you, perfect. Okay, so moving on to announcements, and we'll start off with Trustee Peterson.
All right, so I didn't get much back from Carson High this week, but I was going to also mention, as Kaylin, the Mental Health Week, it's themed as You Matter Week, and with them being together now, it's all the same stuff. It's kind of themed after Inside Out, to acknowledge your emotions and to give them space and to respect them and to not feel like they don't have a place. And the timing, of course, is really important on the heels of the tragic news of the weekend. So I think it was a good opportunity, and it was just kind of accidental that it worked out that way, but to catch the kids right away as they came into the school Monday on the heels of bad news, to make sure that they know that each of them does matter and that they add value.
Absolutely.
I think that was really great. I was going to add to AJ with the jazz. Kaylin actually also touched on that too. I was talking to one of the teachers from Pioneer last night, and she was saying she's got juniors, and on the way to the field trip, they were all kind of meh, like, buh, jazz, buh. But they would not, they were so lit up and enthused, and they came back. She didn't get to attend it. They came back and would not stop talking about it and how amazing it was and what a great experience. And one of the gals that got to sing up and called up and do the I Got the Blues impromptu singing, an absolute highlight for her. And as a senior, well, yeah, she is a senior, but just a highlight. So I don't know how that came to be, but I love that people seek out those opportunities to bring that to our students here. So kudos to whoever it was that made that happen. I was also going to add in on the bowling team, because scholarships got brought around. This team alone earned almost $4,000 of scholarships at the end of this high school bowling season through the high school bowling program. They didn't have to go and wait for colleges to bring it. The program seeks out a lot of community sponsors and has a bunch of people who pour into that program so that kids have opportunity. And the JV Bowlers of the Year for the entire league of 9 schools were both standing side by side in this presentation, and they each won a $1,500 scholarship for their academics and their performance and their character. So I cannot say enough good things about that bowling program. There's 15 kids on the team. Obviously, they weren't all here. My other school, Mark Twain Elementary School, they just finished up reading week as well, as we've been talking about a little bit. And they did something I don't think I've ever seen, and I absolutely loved it, so I wanted to give it a shout out. A lot of schools bring in guest readers and have like Dr. Seuss themes. They did The Masked Reader, just like the TV show The Masked Singer, where people are in costume and you have no idea who they are. And so it was 5 or 6 staff members that are not classroom dedicated, they're school wide. And so the kids should recognize potentially their voice. And they were in the big inflatable blow up costumes. So you could not see them, you could only hear them, and they would wander around the school and they were reading stories and books, and all week long the kids had to try to guess who they were, and they had their big reveal assembly yesterday, and it was just a lot of fun. And I thought that was such a unique way to celebrate reading and to get the kids constantly excited and interacting and not just sitting and listening. So kudos to Mark Twain on a really fun reading week.
Wonderful. Thank you. And Trustee Roberts? Oh, I'm so sorry. I speak Trustee Varner. Forgive me.
Yeah, no problem.
You already talked. No, just kidding.
Yeah, we swapped seats tonight for some reason. Everybody's kind of mentioned the reading week, and I had the opportunity to read to a couple classes. And I didn't really get set up, but I did read one book, and then she says, well, you got a little bit of time. You want to read another book. So I grabbed this Dr. Seuss book, A Mistake, because some of the words in there I could not pronounce. And so it was kind of embarrassing in a way because, but anyway, it was a really great time. And I'd like to thank Mrs. Laker, Mrs. Edmondson, and Miss O'Brien, and Miss Bohartz for letting me read in their class. And it was a really great time. And I always enjoy it. And I've been doing this for way before I got on the school board. And the kids are always so enthused about having somebody else come in to read to them. And it's always really just a great time. So I really appreciated them letting me come in. But anyway, moving on, Fritz this week is celebrating their reading week, and they're going to have some fun activities. And their families can browse their book fair on Wednesday, March 12th from 4 to 6 p.m. And they wanted the Fritz parents to remember the parent conferences are coming up on March 24th through the 27th. And Principal Brown says that a parent-teacher conference without parents is just a teacher conference, which makes sense. And then the Fritz PTA is hosting a night with a night monster, and that's night with a K, night monster, on March 28th at 7:30 p.m. And the parents can contact the Fritz office if they are interested in joining in that event. And that's my report for Fritz, and I have one also for Boardwick. I just got to find it here. Okay, I got it now. Their Lucky Math Challenge is taking place tomorrow. And they wanted to give a huge thanks to everyone and all the families who have been working at Math Facts at home. They have seen great growth. The Bunny Challenge will happen right after spring break, so they encourage everyone to keep practicing the Math Facts. Parent-teacher conferences are coming up on March 24th through the 27th. They're looking forward to being able to meet with all of their parent families. And if some parent does not have a conference time yet, please reach out to your child's teacher and they'll set up a time for you. Then SBAC testing is right around the corner on March 31st through April 11th. All third grade through fifth grade students will be testing in math and language arts. And then their fifth graders will also take the science test after spring break. And finally, Ms. Ricetta wanted to remind everybody not to forget their tickets to the Reno Aces game on April 25th. And you can see the parent square for the link. And keep in mind that Boardwalk will receive some financial gain by people going to that game. So if you can attend, please do so. And that ends my report. Thank you.
And that was on April 25th. Okay, great. Thank you. Trustee Peterson? No report?
Roberts.
Sorry. God almighty. I'm going backwards now. Forgive me.
You're totally fine. So Dr. Ward said Fremont had a great turnout for their guest readers, and they met their goal. The kids read enough minutes to get Dr. Ward and Mr. Herzl taped up on the wall. So they will be doing that Friday as the students come into lunch. So I said I cannot wait to see pictures. I know my kids have been talking about it, and I think they did do like a pre-picture so the kids knew what was coming because anyway, so they're really looking forward to seeing that. And they are looking forward to the opportunity to meet with parents for parent-teacher conferences in a couple weeks. And I just have to give a shout out to them for Reading Week because we didn't just go in and read. They had a fifth grade buddy assigned to every volunteer that came in, and they took us around. They had the second grade class decorate little goodie bags and filled them with treats and water and handed those out. So it was really, really sweet, little extra something. And Dr. Ward said that a group of fifth graders is working really hard on, interactions and communication, eye contact. I was just impressed.
Completely, yeah.
My little buddy did awesome. There was never a dull moment, and I don't know that I could have carried on a conversation with an adult like she did in fifth grade. So way to go, and way to go, kids, for getting those reading minutes.
Nice, very nice. Trustee Clapham?
Yeah, so I have an update from Mr. Conley at Eagle Valley. Registration for classes next year has been completed for the current 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. Several student groups are visiting UNR and TMCC to provide future interest and options for the young scholars. And gate testing is going to be March 17th and 18th. Map testing, March 18th through the 20th. And on Friday, March 21st, it's going to be $5 hat and hoodie fundraiser for the Alzheimer's Foundation. And this has been their focus this year for their fundraising at Eagle Valley. And that's all I have for tonight.
Wonderful, thank you. Trustee Walt?
Yes, thank you. No, I did not. I don't have anything for Empire except the fact that I ran into Ms. Hope Sullivan today at lunch, and she said that they signed the school district map and have submitted it. So I look forward to hearing when we'll get that fence up. Awesome, thanks.
And thank you, Molly, for advocating for that. Okay, Trustee Walker?
So Seeliger is celebrating the book fair this week, and anybody who has ever worked or had kids in an elementary school knows that's always a big week. And they're experiencing some spring fever, so they've been really hitting the school expectations hard and trying to turn things around. And I have a feeling that the storm that's blowing in tonight, tomorrow, might actually be a good omen for Seeliger. And most importantly, she wanted to thank President Ramirez and Mayor Bagwell for coming and helping celebrate. What was it?
It was absenteeism.
Perfect attendance.
Perfect attendance, correct.
So they appreciated the support. So great job.
There you go. Oh, thank you. Thank you. That was fun. Yes. Actually, that's one of the things that I was going to report on too. Yeah, I did go with the mayor and Brooke to celebrate the kids' perfect attendance, and they were just amazing. They were, and Mrs. Bryant, I mean, she is just an amazing teacher, so kudos to her. But part of my report also is to share that I had a lot of fun also reading at Fremont and Empire. And like the superintendent Feeling said, that book with no pictures was something else. It was so fun. And the kids were like, can you stay and read it again for us? So it was really fun. But also, as Trustee Roberts said, so the student who took me to the different classrooms at Fremont, I believe her name is Everly, if I have it correctly, Everly. She was amazing. Just a very, very matured and very well-spoken, and just, I mean, she just did a phenomenal job. So my kudos to those kids that are excelling in their education. And on the 5th, on March 5th, I also enjoyed the Day of the Legislature. So thank you, Trustee Walker and Trustee Warner for, helping with that event. It was a lot of fun and very educational for sure. The jazz concert, I attended that yesterday and it was super fun. I went home and told my family, guess what? I just went to New Orleans. It was so fun. It was such a fun way to start my morning. And you're right. I mean, those kids are just incredible. They're professionals. And yeah, our students had a blast. I think that this is probably what our students would want us to offer to them every Monday morning, so that they can get inspired and get energized and have a good attitude about going to school. So, but yeah, I think that concludes my reports. Of course, yeah.
Really quick, I just wanted to, because you didn't mention about March 2nd at St. Teresa's.
Oh, yes.
And just, kudos to you. Thank you for putting that together for, and both of you, and for the sheriff's office as well. It was so well attended, and the line, to speak to the Mexican consulate and her, yes, and it was, I know those who didn't attend that heard about it were disappointed they didn't attend. And so it was, but without the both of you, it wouldn't have happened. And, both of you need to be thanked for that. So thank you very much for doing that.
Thank you, Molly. I appreciate it. And thank you for also joining us and for supporting that. And Trustee Roberts and Trustee Warner. It was very well received by the community, and they were very grateful to the leaders, like you said, the sheriff and Superintendent Feeling, and obviously Father Tom, for bringing the Mexican consulate to educate him and to provide resources. And they said, this had never happened before in Carson City. And so they were very grateful that we actually had that opportunity for them to learn about their rights and just, again, be familiar with the resources. So thank you for mentioning that. I appreciate it. Did you? Yeah, go ahead.
I don't mean to beat the jazz performance to death, but it was that good. But a big thank you. I neglected to say this. So behind the scenes, it was a lot. It was a really heavy lift to make this all happen. there's a young lady in the corner who made magic happen over there. So a big thank you to Renee Cortez. Mrs. Fuson helped so much with the logistics when we were trying to put this together. So thank you, Tasha. Our principals, Dr. Conley and Amy Robinson. I know, I think at the high school, Dan Carson's, but Dean Sherry Louthan did all the work for them, organizing it. Our music teachers, Ms. Van Norman, Bree Valley at Carson Middle School, John Brill at Eagle Valley, Nick Jocks and Andy Sonamaker at the high school. Just they all had a part in it. So it was a lot to put together behind the scenes. So I wanted you to know that, but I'm glad nobody realized it. They just had a good time.
Thank you for mentioning that. Yeah, thank you everyone for helping out with that. Okay, so agenda item number 5, association reports for discussion only. Do we have anyone from the association? It doesn't look like we do. All right, so then agenda item number 6, public comment. And I was informed by Renee that we do not have an online public comment. Do we have in-person public comment? Seeing none, then at this moment, I will close public comment. And moving on to agenda item number 7, discussion and presentation on the instructional material selection process for elementary computer science for the Carson City School District as budgeted. And this is for discussion only. Welcome, Rhonda Wallace and Tasha Fusen and Tara Bubula.
We actually have quite a team with us, so I'm
okay.
going to let everybody
Then
introduce themselves.
I will let you guys introduce yourselves.
I don't know what I'm doing. Okay. All right. Did you press it already? Yeah, it's on as long as you have
Oh,
green
okay.
light. All right. I'm Rhonda Wallace. I am the K-12 electives and computer science curriculum assessment coordinator for our district. And this year, the elementary computer science team, which I have here, Tira,
Can we go
sorry.
ahead and
See?
have-
Can you tell I've never been here before?
That's okay. That's completely
The time
okay.
I was here, I didn't have to speak.
That's okay. If we can have them introduce themselves. Is
Okay,
that
perfect.
I guess I'll start. I'm Tara Babula. I teach K-5 computer science at Mark Twain Elementary School.
Okay.
Hi, Irene Waltz, computer science, Rich Elementary.
Terry Schiffer, Fremont Elementary.
Adrienne Wiggins, computer science, Empire Elementary.
So this year we realized we don't really have curriculum for our elementary computer science. And as you guys know, it's super important for all of our subjects, whether they're electives or not, to have support for our teachers. So we did a materials review and selection headed by Tira Babula. Oh, you said this button. Okay. So first we did a needs assessment, which obviously the integration of computer science at the elementary level is essential for preparing our students to thrive in a technology-driven world. So a well-designed computer science curriculum must address accessibility for teachers. It must promote equity among all the students. It needs to align with our standards given to us by the state. And it should evaluate the current state of our computer science instruction for our elementary schools and identify any gaps and look for those opportunities to support the successful adoption for a comprehensive curriculum for computer science in the elementary.
I'll take over.
Oh, it's you. Sorry. There you go.
Thank you. Well, first of all, I wanted to thank everyone for having us here and board members and our executive cabinet. It's really nice to meet you all from a distance. I'm the newest member, and I am honored and in awe of my peers. They have just supported me entirely. They are truly professionals and exceptional teachers. So I just want to say that. I'm doing the sort of the drawbacks right now. Where we are now, teacher accessibility is an issue with our curriculum across sites, as many of our individual teachers that are part of the team are paying out of pocket or using their classroom resources, seeking supplemental funding from either parent-teacher organizations or donors choose projects to help support curriculum. Secondly, equity across all school sites for all students is not equivalent or equal. Some students have limited access, while some schools are a little better endowed and have STEM programs and a little bit more resources inside and outside of the classroom. Third point is community engagement. We really don't have a consistent participation pool from our caregivers, our families, and we really like to see that. Some of our schools have STEM family nights. Save the date, Fremont Elementary, April 30th, everyone's invited, and I really would like to see the members there, so please join us for our first family STEAM night, April 30th, from 5 to 7. But we do want to see that. We want to see it for all of our students, all of our Carson Elementary School children. And the last point being high-quality instruction, that was mentioned by Ms. Wallace. We are not using research-based per se. It is meeting our standards, but we would like it to be consistent across all sites as students do transfer in and out of our schools. We find it a little bit of a tricky kind of meeting the learner where they are and what they've been exposed to, and then continuing with their growth at our own school sites. So we all are here for the kids and we want high quality instruction. Let's see if I can handle this here. Okay, why is this important? Because it supports our Carson City School District strategic plan. It is important because we want to, number one, provide high quality instruction. That aligns with goal 2, curriculum that matters, providing students with rigorous curriculum that is identified for meeting differentiated supports. Not all students are at the same level, but we want to promote and help them be successful. So again, goal 2 aligns with our intentions. Secondly, goal 3, engage parents and families, actively promoting family and parent involvement for the academic success of our students and building those partnerships along with our community partnerships with all stakeholders. And lastly, goal 5, a community and full partnership means connecting students with real-world life skills and that extend beyond our classrooms. And that's pretty evident in what we've been looking at and where we want them to roll into middle school and high school and beyond. Pass that on. Thank you.
Okay,
Oh, not you.
While they pass it down, Tara Babula for the record. I'm going to go ahead and discuss with all of you the material reviews and selection process our team used. The Nevada Department of Education has 3 elementary approved curriculum materials. We looked at all 3, one being Code HS, the second one being Ellipsis Education, and the third being Skillstruck. The team created a review rubric with criteria that we felt was essential when we evaluated computer science curriculum materials. And with our rubric, our 3 main categories that we considered were teacher accessibility, equity, and content. For teacher accessibility, we looked at teacher support. So we considered educators who have a deep understanding of computer science and even have computer science endorsements on their licenses, all the way to educators who may be new to computer science and may not have a strong foundation of understanding of those standards. With teacher accessibility, we also looked at supplemental materials that considered data privacy and ownership. With equity, we looked at culture at the community level. We felt it's important in computer science for our kids to see their communities represented and themselves represented within those curriculum materials. For our girls, that they can see themselves being in the field of computer science is important to us. And we also looked at exceptionalities for like our sub-pops of students, like our MLs, our multilingual learners, our special ed students, our GATE students, et cetera. For content, we looked at both content for computer science content, alignment to our state standards and all the work our team has done with our proficiency scales. We also looked at vertical alignment. So what does computer science look like for our kindergarten students? What does it look like for our first grade students, and then rolling up through our grade levels? What about when they leave us with that foundational understanding in computer science and go to middle school? What does it look like for them there, and what does it look like for them in high school? So we considered that. And we also looked at instructional design. What kind of higher order thinking skills are included in the materials? What kind of metacognitive engagement do kids have the availability to participate in? Is there a progress tracker for students? Are they able to see their progress over time? Are they able to understand what they know and what they don't know? Are they able to set goals around that understanding? And then also a progress tracker for teachers to be able to look at to understand where their kids are in real time with their understanding of those standards. Considering a feedback loop for students, a formative feedback loop, a summative feedback loop, and then also for our kids to be able to share and collaborate around computer science and what they create. The last thing we considered was assessment opportunities, again, both formative and summative. What do those look like for our students? What kind of feedback do they get along the way? Are there opportunities for teachers to create their own formative and summative assessments? And are there things already created that we can use as well? After all the 3 curriculum materials were evaluated, our team selected SkillStruck to be considered for our elementary curriculum material for computer science. And Irene is going to talk to you why SkillStruck was selected by our team.
Hi, Irene Waltz for the record. So I get to do the good news, the pros of why we chose them. First of all, the team came out in person. 2 of the people came and talked to us when they were demonstrating the product. And we talked about the need for community engagement evenings, and they're willing to do that, which none of the other 2 had mentioned that. Pardon me. As Tira mentioned, there's lots of accessibility features, which some may not even know is an issue for students. For example, sight might be a problem for some. There's so many accessibility features that were not in the other products that this is really a positive for students. It's got so many options. And you might know some of the things from the testing, like when you do maps and those kinds of things, some of the choices that are available, only they have that included in this program. There's a lot of student choice based on what you open, what standards are being addressed, and what they can choose within working with those standards. Really high engagement for them. There's lots of gamified, if you will, and we know our students really engage with that type of atmosphere where they can create things along the way with their learning. For teachers, there's an auto grader, which is always very helpful. So Tira mentioned progress tracking, but it also gives students a chance to see pretty quickly how they're doing and to be able to try again if need be. Lots of custom hints, which is now this is where the current AI comes in, seeing what they need and where they need to go from there. A really nice teacher dashboard. As we all know, when updates are made in just a computer system, it's annoying. This has a very nice computer dashboard for teachers to use, very easy to use. It's very safe and secure, so it meets all of the COPA, SIPA, FERPA compliant issues. It's very, very well versed in cross-curricular areas, going into things that not only covers computer science, but how it can be integrated into other content areas as well. For the teachers who are using this, lots of good support and help. In fact, they've got a, if you will, hotline where we can just call for additional help if needed. which is always very nice. Enrichment opportunities called the playground, again, very engaging to the students. Lots of assessments and rubrics built in, which, by the way, Tara didn't mention this, but oftentimes we have to also build the rubrics for ourselves for these students, gleaning different rubrics from different things we've seen in other areas of curriculum. And lastly, it's got a learning activity generator, and that way we can choose activities that are current, and they can choose at their own pace.
All right, Adrienne Wiggins for the record. And so I'm going to talk about, we kind of look to see were there impact reports on these different programs and what did that look like. And so this impact report, they looked at a targeted group of students that needed remedial math intervention. And so they had followed a group of students from 7 different math teachers, 4 different countries, excuse me, and 5 different states. And when these students started, their average score on the MAPS assessment was a 175, and national average is 185. So they're well below kind of what the national average was. After a year of working with this program, their spring average was a 206, and national average was a 201. So not only did they make the expected growth, they exceeded that and jumped above what the national average was. Huge gains in that. Also, SBAC, so there's that projection on SBAC based on what MAPS was. And so as they were following this in the beginning, they were projected, I think it was a 492 kind of average level, which is a level 2 on SBAC. And at the end, it was a 525, which was a level 3. And so they looked at like, what is it that this program has that made such great growth as far as the MAPS assessment? And so part of that is it goes back, computer science is very math-based. There's a lot of connections to math. But the huge, do I just push this one? All right. The big connection, and anybody who knows me knows that math is my first love. And so this is something I was excited about, which is why I'm speaking about it, because computer science is so closely related to the mathematical practices. And so this list just kind of gives you an idea of showing you, like we have math practice 1, which is all about solving problems and persevering. And in computer science, students are learning to debug code. I have a thing on my board that says, and I tell the kids all the time, computer science is 10% writing code and 90% trying to figure out why it doesn't work. So it's all about making sense and trying to figure it out, because it's not going to work the first time most of the time, and you have to find out where that bug is and how to fix it. Reason abstractly and quantitatively, and so we talk about algorithms and sequencing algorithms, and that makes connections to ELA as well, not just math. Construct viable arguments and critiquing reasoning of others. We do pair programming within our classroom, and this program has that as well, where students are working with a partner and they're constructing those arguments with each other on what works best, and no, we need to change this and fix this, all the way down in kindergarten. It's pretty incredible to listen to them argue in kindergarten about, no, I think actually that's not going to work, we need to do this. Website building, so modeling with mathematics, using appropriate tools, code blocks, solving puzzles, attend to precision, so syntax encoding, solving puzzles, look for and make use of structure, so again, website building and making use of structure within there, but even just look for and make use of structure within the code itself. And then look for and express regularity and repeated reasoning, and so building the efficient algorithms using loops. And so we talk to our kids, like some kids will just over and over write something down in a code and telling them, how do we make that more efficient, right? How can we clean up our code? So all of this does support math. I will say, like, our team's really great, and this program has it as well, like not just mathematics, but there's a lot of support with ELA. On the next slide, there is a demo lesson, and we're not going to pull it up and show it because it was open for review. But I will tell you, one of the things I love about this is we've been trying really hard to pull in reading within our classroom. And so every one of these lessons is set up where there is a textbook where there's reading and we're understanding the concept, but it's also built as we read part of it, it's like, okay, now you try it, right? And so like in this lesson, they're reading and they're understanding how HTML works, and so they're looking and they're understanding the process, and then there's parts where okay, so when you code this, if you put L1, it's gonna be a bigger text, and if you put L6, it's gonna be a smaller text, so try it out. And so they get to play around with that website by changing those things. Excuse me. And so there is just great application throughout the learning with the students where they get to do it and actually see what happens right away. And I'll pass it on, but I'm passionate about this because this is my 3rd year doing it, and I absolutely love computer science, but it's been a bear to, I can't tell you how many hours we all spend trying to find stuff that is good quality for our students, and we're all finding different things, and our team's wonderful and shares, but nothing is vetted. It's us finding what we can and trying to create it. So looking back at that, you know, the data that shows the effect that a program like this can have on our students is important.
Rhonda Wallace for the record. Next, we're going to talk about the public review and comments because as one of the requirements, we have to put this out there. They had the access to that demo for 2 weeks. It was in the district office set up. There were comment cards there for them to make. We published it. Dan Davis sent out a notification. We published it in the newspaper, so it was out there. However, nobody left any comments for us, so I have nothing to report on that. There were no public comments for review, but we did do our due diligence on it. So moving forward, obviously tonight, we are presenting to you our wish to have material from Skillstruck Launchpad be our adopted curriculum for elementary computer science. With that happening, we're hoping that the district will approve a PO to order those materials by the end of June or July. In July, we are hoping for that integration between Skillstruck Launchpad, our Infinite Campus, and the SSO and all of that stuff happening. Then in August, we will get all of our elementary computer science team have some PL for them to get started so that when school starts, they will be ready to integrate it into their curriculum and use it as their main source or resource. And then throughout the year, we are going to plan time in each of the COP meetings for them to have reflection on how it's going and any ongoing PL that they feel like they might need.
Tasha Fuson for the record, so I get to speak about cost. So I get the fun part. No, before I get into the cost of this program, I think the team has done a wonderful job talking about the process that they went through. Also knowing that this will be the very first time that we will have a district selected core curriculum for computer science in the elementary. Again, they did a great job explaining that, but they've all been creating their own curriculum and their own materials, finding their own materials. The reason for that is it's not that our district didn't want to support those efforts. It's that actually there was no adopted curriculum even at the state level until I think it was 3 years ago now? 3 years ago now. So this is, it's new even for our state. So while we've had them limping along with a few supplementals here and there, we really wanted to honor what they do and what they bring to the table for our students by adopting a core curriculum for them. So again, what that looks like is that the state did the initial approval process for all those resources that were approved at the state level. We put out a request for information. The companies that returned or got back to us on that request for information, then they went through this process and did the rubric. So what this comes down to now is with Skillstruck, I get to go into negotiations with them is what that looks like. But in essence, their typical cost is $7,000 per year per school. So they give you a group discount of being $30,000 if you have all 6 schools in there. And then if you do a multi-year contract, then they say, okay, well, we'll charge you $27,000 a year for doing a multi-year contract. I'm really looking at the 3-year option. And the reason why is that the state will be, again, looking at instructional materials for computer science 3 years from now in 2028 will be up for review again. We also find that in this particular area, things change so incredibly fast. So where most of our contracts are usually 7 to 8 years, like when we just did the K-5 mathematics adoption, it was an 8-year contract with them. But in computer science, I'm very hesitant to enter into that long of a contract, literally just because technology changes so fast and these tech companies change hands so quickly. And we've found with a few of our providers that when they're bought out by a bigger company, et cetera, sometimes customer service lags, those types of things. So we're really looking at that 3-year option just to take us along till the next state adoption. So that's currently where we're at. This is already budgeted for within the Ed Services budget for this year. As you know, we as a district typically spend about, I'd say probably $500,000 per year on supporting curriculum and instruction efforts within our schools. So it's part of that budget. So it's actually not an action item. It's an informational item for us to tell you the process that we did, but we are here and happy to answer any questions that you might have of us.
Thank you, Tasha. Okay,
Can
questions from the board?
Can I just add something
Yes, of
really quick,
course.
just because Tasha made a good point. She talked about how much stuff changes in here, and I will tell you that was one of the things we were most impressed with this company, is they said they sat here with actually computer science teachers. As you know, across the country, a lot of times it's classroom teachers. These are standards teachers have to teach, and so it's classroom teachers that don't often have that background, and so there were things that we were like, oh, well, this would be so much better if it did this, and as we were talking to them, they were texting their team, and they were making those changes, and like we saw in real time one of the changes change on our thing, and that was one of the things we were most impressed, is they're like, it's important for us to get that feedback and make those changes that we think are important. So I just wanted to make that point.
Interesting. Okay, Molly?
Thank you. It looks great. Just a few questions. So if you did the 3-year contract, do you know how often, I mean, does the content change annually then? Or is it the same?
It would be the
curriculum?
same, and this particular one, the curriculum would be the same, but
For
as
all
we
3
stated,
years?
yes, but they might enhance. Sometimes they enhance. They cannot do, with the state of Nevada, you cannot do substantial revisions during the time frame that you're on the adopted list. They can only be, there might be enhancements, there might be something where maybe an error was found somewhere and then they corrected that kind of thing, but they cannot make any substantial changes without having to go through another adoption process at the state. So it's not an open ed resource, which is an important statement to make, because we struggle sometimes with open ed resources because they're not regulated by the state and they're not regulated with how often they can change. And so you might approve something. We see this sometimes with like the family life group, like we'll approve something and then it gets substantially changed a year later. So this is it is a core curricular program that's been approved at the state level. So you might see minor updates or things like that, but nothing of substance.
Okay, so 1 year, 3 years, the content would be the same.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. And then how often do the students get a computer science class?
So we see every single student, so kindergarten all the way up to 5th grade, and so they come to us once a week for 45 minutes, sometimes twice a week. So Wednesdays we have a rotation day, so like I'm going to see my Monday classes again tomorrow. So sometimes they'll get the 2 times 45 minutes each week.
Okay.
And that was, I'm sorry, I'm just gonna throw this in, because that was the other thing we loved, is when we told them, like they can set up the way the curriculum is paced based on how our classes are, and we can take it and kind of reorder it based on our progression document. So the curriculum's all there, but we can kind of just move stuff to best meet our needs, and so that was really great too.
Is this, that brings up another question, is this 30,000 or 27,000 then technical support? Or is that something separate?
That includes technical support, yes.
Wow.
I didn't read the top part of it, but the top part of it talks about everything that's included within that contract.
Okay. And then another question, I had just 2 more questions. They mentioned the events, would it be one large community event or would they be doing individual school events?
So with SkillStruck, what they will do is they'll help either create and even facilitate a large community event around computer science. So it would be one event for our entire district.
Okay, great thing. And then one thing that really kind of struck me was when you mentioned the equity or inequity. Do you feel as though this is going to solve that? The equity piece of what we don't have right now?
Well, I'll just throw in on a very basic level. This is my year 6 of computer science teaching, and I have never done the same thing more than 4 years in a row. So the fact that I'm still teaching computer science means this is something that is ever changing and interests me and I'm passionate about. So I will spend countless hours finding things, creating things, putting things together, writing up things on Donors Choose to get hardware and materials for my classroom. And so my kids at Mark Twain may have a lot in my classroom, and then at another school in our district, maybe not so much. And so that alone on a surface level, when you talk about equity, is not consistent across our district or fair for all of our students. But then if you go deeper into equity, there's more. You want to?
Right. I just wanted to add that equity in terms of accessibility. So we have at Fremont mainstreamed special needs, extensive needs students, and they're coming in, and we have the gamut, right? We have struggling students that are nonverbal to very highly functioning students. So I think equity at that level, there's a gap, and we need to close that gap and just make it a fair, level playing field for all of them. And I think SkillStruck with all the supports really does it. The assistive technology, it's beyond just speech to text and text to, it's just beyond that, what we saw demonstrated. And I think it just struck a chord with all of us as classroom teachers, like, wow, this will be something that all of our kids can benefit from the struggler to the high achievers.
That's great to hear. And thank you for all your work.
Anybody else? Richard?
Yeah, thank you, guys. I think this is very important. This is the world we live in. Sometimes I think it's unfortunate, but it is, these computers. Did you mention coding? That these kids would be learning coding at this age? And somebody brought up, and I'm glad you brought up, that coding does not always work the first time.
Right.
And I've experienced that firsthand. We have a 7th grade grandson who is coding, and it was so hard that we actually had to get my son, who works in IT full-time, to assist. And so, it took a long time, and so it was hard. So I'm glad they're starting at an earlier age. And I think it's gonna,
Kindergarten. Just think
Kindergarten,
about that,
so-
because it's like, to me, it's incredible. I didn't have this growing up, and our parents, when they come in and see our kids that are programming in kindergarten, they're like, "Oh my gosh, what?" So yeah.
I may come in and sit through a couple of kindergarten classes.
Well, and I'll add in too, I have students who may not excel in their homeroom class with reading. They're not the best reader. They're not the best in math. But it is crazy to me when they come in and they just like sink into their chair and like nothing around them distracts them. And they're just going through that coding and writing these pretty complex at their level algorithms to solve puzzles or do robotics. And I'm just like, wow. So they know the math, they just haven't found a way for them in the regular classroom to engage in it, like they do in my class.
I would support this, and would this come back for approval later on, or how does that work?
Nope, we're just making sure that you have an opportunity as a board to give us your thoughts before I enter into negotiations with this company and decide whether or not we're going to do 1 year or 3 years. So,
So we don't have to approve it like we have other
Correct.
curriculum?
yeah. Well, technically, you passively approve. Like if you said, Tasha, no, then I would acquiesce and say, okay. But it does not take an active approval from the board. So this is us informing you and giving you the opportunity to, to tell me, hey, we don't like it if you don't, but.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Michelle. You're having fun over there with the button.
All right. So recently, quick story that will make sense. I was out of town down in LA with my daughter, and she ended up having an emergency appendectomy. And as we were going back for surgery, one of the nurses stopped us and she said, "Your surgeon is a female, your anesthesiologist is a female, and your scrub nurse is a female. Do you realize how special that is?" And as I look at the 6 of you, 6 women out here advocating and investigating, endorsing, and implementing in a field that has not typically been women strong, I am so proud of you, and I am thankful for you and for the passion that you pour into making sure that opportunities that have not always been even across the board are at a ground level very accessible to everybody. So thank you for doing what you do.
If I can just build on that, because it is why I'm here, is my daughter is a computer science engineer. And when she went to the college and toured the college, my husband and I looked in every one of those classrooms, and we were lucky if we saw one female in the classroom. And there was a point at which she was doubting her ability because we didn't have this when she came through Carson City, and Carson City was great for her. She didn't have that background, and so it was something new. And she excelled. She did awesome. But even when she graduated, my husband and I started counting the females that graduated with a computer science degree, and we never made it to 10 in her graduation. And so it's great for everybody, right? It's great for everybody, but I was a computer science teacher because I learned from her. And that's why I'm here. And people think it's the other way with her, and they're like, oh, your mom's a computer science, that's where you get it. And she's like, nope, she got it from me. So just say.
Well, I just want to echo that statement that nurse said, that do you realize how special this is? Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to digress for just a second and actually go back to Trustee Varner's question, because it just struck me that the two of you are new to our board. And the difference between if we were to do an initial adoption and choose a material that was not already approved at the state level, all right, so that was not on a state adopted list, then you as trustees would have to approve our district selection, and then it would go to the State Board of Education, and they would have to approve it again. Once it's already on the state approved list, then we actually, by state law, are only required as a district to, believe it or not, the only requirement is for us to actually open it up to our community for them to provide comment. We, though, within our district's policy on instructional materials, then also put the layer of having the team come in, or typically me and whatever the coordinator is that worked on that process, come and inform you of the process that we did within the district to select the material, if that makes sense. So that's why Trustee Varner was asking, do we have to approve this one, or is that, no? So this one has already been approved and adopted by the State Department of Education, and therefore we're just doing a selection of those versus being the initial adopter.
Thank
Ms.
you,
President.
Tasha, for that clarification.
And just for the record, everything Ms. Fuson just said is exactly right from a legal standpoint. And I would just for the record point out that the agenda item is also very clear that it's just a discussion and presentation for discussion only, so no action can be taken.
Okay. One last question. So going back to Molly's question about equity. So even the English learners are taking these classes. Okay. Okay, that's really exciting. And the kindergartners, that's impressive, extremely impressive. I'm going to have to take some classes from them.
Yeah, and it can be translated, and there's like a whole bunch of different languages we can translate it into for our students as well.
That is fabulous. Yeah. Thank you very much. All right. Yeah, go ahead, Trustee Roberts.
I just want to say thank you for your work on this. When we got our packets and I was reading through your presentation, didn't realize that you guys are coming up with your own curriculum and doing this. And I'm glad to see you're collaborating together and doing what you can to make it easy transition for the kids who maybe move schools and things. And this sounds like a great program. Best of all the worlds, it sounds like, with the things that you guys are looking for and needing. And it sounds like they are great at supporting you in your needs. So thank you for all your work, and my kids never complain about computer science, so thank you. You're doing a great job right now, and I'm sure this will make it even better, so thank you guys.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for the presentation. Okay, moving on to agenda item number 10-8, sorry. I'm way off today. I just do not know how to count tonight, sorry. Designation of Silva Sharini and Associates, LLC, as an independent audit firm for fiscal year 2025 in an amount not to exceed $75,500 as budgeted, as required by NRS 354.624 for possible action. And Mr. Spencer Wentworth is not here, but Superintendent Feeling will be presenting.
Thank you, President Ramirez. So each year, by Nevada law, we are required to designate an auditor each year before the end of March. By March 31st. So we have asked Silva Sharini Shirani, thank you, and Associates, who's they've been doing our audit for a number of years, I think a decade now. They also complete they do the audits for Douglas County School District, Lyon County School District, actually Carson Montessori, as well as some other entities, but for other similar sized districts. So they have a lot of experience in this area, a lot of experience in Northern Nevada. This year, they're increasing their fees by 4%, taking it up to $72,500 for their services. I always like to point out that the audit firm we had before this one, which I think the last audit they completed was the 2012, 2013 audit, and they were kind of what Silva Shirani, and Associates is now, where they took care of a lot of the local districts. At that time, the fee that we paid was, I believe it was $89,000. So that's over a decade ago. So while it is a 4% increase, it's still well under what we paid back then. And I think we've been very satisfied with their services over that period of time. So just presenting this to you tonight for approval, so we can get that notice off to taxation and start planning as we come to the end of the fiscal year.
Okay, questions or comments from the board? Okay, Molly?
Okay, thank you. So with that 4% change, did you notice, are they going to be having the same amount of staff, or are they increasing the staff for the audit?
Not that I'm aware of. They generally have three, well, they rotate, I guess, on the different weeks going to the different districts, but they generally have three people in our offices at any time doing whatever it is at the work that they have. So I don't know that they're looking to increase their staff otherwise that are participating in districts. I guess I don't know. They also do work offsite, so behind the scenes, I'm not sure what else is exactly happening behind the scenes back at their offices, but I just know that when they are on site, there's usually 2 to 3 people there on any given day.
Okay. And then, are there, just out of knowledge-wise, are there specific areas that they focus on? I mean, like 1 year they may focus on certain areas, and then the next year they change it to focus on different areas? Or do they stay consistent in focusing on?
It's generally consistent. So what they have to cover in the audit is actually very strictly defined between NRS and their requirements of GASB, which is the Government Accounting Standards Board. What has actually happened over the last, well, really since about 2008, because the GASB is a national organization. So if they say, okay, now you need to do this, then every single district audit that's happening in the country has to make that change. And so GASB has been very active over the past decade in finding many other things to add into audits. If you look at our audit back from, say, 2014 when I got here, I think it was about an 80-page document. Now it's like a 120-page document, and it's just because of all these things that they've had to add on over time. I'll say, so like in their testing, so there's a part of our audit called the single audit. And I don't know why that is the term, and it's kind of strange, I think, but it's when they're looking at all of our grants. And so every year they'll pick different grants to test in some more specific detail to look at the flows of money and that we're meeting all the obligations and of that. But they haven't otherwise, there's not necessarily a change in focus every year. It's just making sure that they cover all those things that they need to throughout.
And that's what I was kind of going with, is because we do a single audit as well. And there's when our organization gets audited, it's extremely staff time intensive. Sending it all. And that's why, you know, we've always kind of been able to keep our fee down, is we will say, you know, give us more to where we can then make it to where, you know, their staff will, their level of work, it stays consistent. So if that's what I'm kind of getting to, is if their level of work is staying consistent and it's increasing the school district's, you know, staff's time, what is the reasoning for the increase?
Sure. Yeah, I don't know that it has increased staff time other than making sure with all these additional requirements that have come on that they have to do within the parameters of the audit, us getting them whatever the information is that they need. I think it has been more on their side. It's taking more time and more manpower to complete the audit just because they have to go through all of these extra steps. One of the examples I'll use, because it drives Dave Silva crazy, and me, is there's a I think I'm trying to remember the term, I think it's statement of net assets, but within that, they have to do this analysis of PERS now, and they have to show on their books or on our books what our net PERS liability is, which it doesn't even, so they're looking at all of our current employees and basically what would it cost if PERS went belly up and then we were on the hook for the cost of PERS, which isn't even how it works. So it's kind of a silly thing, and I don't expect PERS to go belly up, but even if they did, that cost is not on us. But it's significant. I think it's well over $100 million, some huge number. And so then when that gets thrown in there as this liability, it makes us look like we are in a really bad financial position, but it's not even real. But they have to go through this entire process trying to determine what that number is. So that's just something, one of the many things that's been thrown in over time. So I think if anything, it still ultimately probably represents a little bit of inflation because we do still see that in the economy. But over time, they also have had increases in the work that they have to do to create the product itself.
And then one more thing.
Go ahead.
Maybe. So, he's like, you always say one more thing and then you say another and another and another. So I'm saying one more and then we'll just go again and again. Okay, so the timeline, because when you say that, the timeline kind of concerns me as well as I think that it would be great, you know, for them to be able to start July of 2025. But that's the end of the fiscal year and you're not even, you know, closing up your grants until June 30th of 2025. And so is that even reasonable for staff to start getting, if they're, you know, picking and choosing what grants, to get that done?
Yeah, normally a lot of the single audit work. So they generally come for a lot of their preliminary work. I think it's either right at the I think it's in August. They'll do like a week or two of preliminary work, but then they'll come back. But they actually don't start doing the single audit piece until after September 30th, because a lot of those federal grants, right, they run on a different schedule. So, but that too, it ends up pushing some of these things later and later. And with the additional requirements that have come on, I know it has been a stress on accountants across the country for school districts, just because of the timelines that are present and how, I guess, public entities probably in general, not just school districts, just because of the additional things that are being required and we're trying to get it done. I mean, I think it gives you a sense of, I think like 40 years ago, they would basically have the audits wrapped up and complete by like October. And federal grants have grown over time, right? And that timeline doesn't work. And then the audits themselves just become so much more complicated. There's just no way to have that kind of timeline anymore.
Because they mention it in there that we would possibly be getting the audit in October, but I just don't see that.
No.
Okay.
Yeah. It's kind of like Columbo. Turns around, one more thing.
Anybody else? Questions or comments? Richard?
I would support going forward with this. They've always, I think, in my mind, have done a very good job. And if I remember right, a couple years when the district was kind of hurting for money, they really didn't raise their fee for a few years and gave us that kind of break. So I think they're a good firm.
Okay, great. Go ahead, Michelle.
Mine's kind of just a curiosity question. On the paperwork, it says that it's billed at the hourly rate, but not to exceed that 72.5. Is it often that we don't hit that cap?
No.
Okay.
Okay, so if I don't have any more questions or comments, I will entertain a motion. Nope. Anybody?
Sorry, I'm new to this. I'm like, it's this thing,
You go
right?
for it.
Anything else, Molly? Okay, right? Okay,
go
great. Okay, I move that the Carson City School District Board of Trustees approve the audit firm of Silva, how do you say it? Shirani and Associates LLC as the auditors for fiscal year 2025 for a contract amount not to exceed $72,500.
Okay, so motion by trustee Roberts, second by, I heard Molly, okay, trustee Walt. Any board discussion? Seeing none, any public comment? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you so much, Superintendent Feeling. Okay. All right, very good. Moving on to agenda item number 9, and this is 2025 Nevada Legislative Update Report on items of interest relating to education, and this is for for discussion only, and Superintendent Feeling.
Thank you, President Ramirez. So the legislative session has begun. Started the first week of February. In that time of about, I don't know if the number is up to 1,000 yet for the number of bills, but it usually will end up around 1,100, 1,200 bills, and there's still many to be introduced. But of that, about 10% impact education one way or another. So at this point, we're at about 115 to 120 bills that could impact us, which really excites me. Everyone likes to have their piece. So, and I should clarify too, it's not that every bill is specifically about education. Some of them just impact education, and mostly it's through some kind of fiscal impact. But there are many specifically related to education. So I was going to give you like a one-page summary of all 120 bills. I've decided against that because I thought that might take a little too much time. But just a couple of highlights, especially of bills that have already been presented. And I'll talk a little bit about those that I think are interesting or maybe a little more impactful. Can talk a little bit about the governor's budget. There was a presentation on that, and then have any questions that you have. So first, there is a bill, Senate Bill 52. There's actually quite a bit in this bill, but one of the things that if you're aware, so we have the read by grade 3 laws, where students are supposed to be achieving fairly well in their reading scores before leaving 3rd grade, but there are many good cause exemptions, and so looking to make some adjustments to that. And I think the specific one here is allowing there to be a portfolio of arts. I think there was already some language around the idea of a portfolio, but it's adjusting the language around that, some kind of portfolio of student work that shows that they are reading proficiently by that grade. I think it's not until 2029 where the effect is supposed to be if a student isn't proficient in third grade, that they would be held back a year. And I'm not sure if that won't get changed by that time potentially, or modified in some way. But this continues to be a really popular topic in legislative circles. And I would expect in every session until the end of time, if that law is still on the books, we'll always have bills around that, potentially modifying it or adding different ways. I think one of the realities is I think it's widely accepted that how a student does on a test on a day doesn't necessarily define everything about them and how good they are at anything specifically. And so looking at other ways to try to quantify how they are performing is always going to be a part of the discussion. Assembly Bill AB 184 pertains to NIAA, and they're looking at potentially prohibiting athlete recruitment across schools. We clearly, as a school district, we spend a lot of money on trying to recruit athletes. I'm kidding. We don't do that. But there are schools that do. And so I think in the effort to make it an even playing field, there's some interest in getting away from that. I don't know that ultimately this will have much of a life, but I think it's interesting at least that it's being talked about. NIAA is making some changes around the requirement. They have proposals internally to change some of the rules around kids transferring between schools. And so I think that that may be a part of the discussion as far as what is NIA going to do with that, and some more focus on that angle rather than trying to crack down on the recruitment piece. I think as much as I don't like the idea of athletic recruitment, I think it's also a really difficult thing to nail down to say that this was actually happening and therefore you could be in trouble for it. I'll come back to that one. Assembly Bill 217. This is actually around some of the issues that have come up recently around immigration enforcement. And the bill is actually, it's sort of a strange bill because it really just would codify in Nevada law the things that we are already doing in terms of, protected student information and how, if there was enforcement happening, how would a school respond to that? We're following the law, but what are the steps that we, to do our due diligence have to follow? But the one thing that is really the only thing that's unique about it is that it creates a misdemeanor charge if a school or district in that process makes a mistake in the process somehow. And so that's where there's clearly laws around this, and we expect to follow the laws and make sure, again, we're doing our due diligence through all of this. But the idea that if there were a mistake, an employee would have a misdemeanor charge against them, and that's meeting with some resistance.
And Superintendent Bueling, I think that there's some talk around it starting with the disciplinary, like whatever the district policy is, and then progressing to the misdemeanor. We'll see where it falls, but that's some of the conversations I've been involved in
Okay.
or heard about.
Okay. So yeah, and what I would say too is these have been all the first readings, and I know even it's interesting sitting in on the some of the committee sessions. It's the first time a bill is being heard, yet there's already I forget what there's a term they use, but an amendment. I can't think of it, but there's already been an amendment, like an agreed upon amendment to the bill, even if it hasn't been officially submitted. So it does make it kind of difficult because when you're going into a committee hearing to, there's specifically a bill that you're interested in and you see the bill, all that's posted is the bill. And then you go in and then they're already talking about when they're presenting it that, we've had discussions with some stakeholders that have concern, and we've agreed to some amendments, conceptual amendments to this. But there's like no document to look at to see exactly what that is. Later on the website, I'm trying to think of what is it, the legislative website that lists all the bills. Nellis, thank you. Yeah, they'll eventually put those amendments up, but in the initial readings, you don't really get to see a lot of that. So it's a little frustrating actually, but it does happen fairly often. Assembly Bill 24 is actually an interesting one. So this revolves around something called competency-based education. The idea being that the knowledge and skills that kids have shouldn't be like what matters is that they're gaining knowledge and skill, and that knowledge and skill should define how they progress through their education, not the fact that they've had their butts sitting in a seat for a certain number of hours to gain a certain number of credit toward graduation or promotion. So this is something that is becoming a more popular idea nationwide. Some states have already have laws on the books like this. There's a district I'm aware of in Washington as a part of this cohort group I'm with that has done some really creative things with how kids are gaining credit and how they have to do it. And it isn't around what's called the Carnegie unit. So the way education is now, how we think of it, where you're sitting in a class basically for 1 hour every single day, and over that time, if you've sat in that chair enough hours, then you gain a credit. It's basically blowing that up and saying it doesn't really matter how many hours you've been sitting there. Do you know this and can you do this or not? That's all that matters. And so it's a different way to look at education, and I see this as ultimately with the idea of trying to innovate education. This is actually a critical part of that. It's harder to innovate when you're still locked into that Carnegie unit. And it's called the Carnegie unit because as a part of the education reform that was happening back in like the 1910s, this was part of Andrew Carnegie and the Carnegie Foundation and how they thought of kind of more to this factory model of how we get things done. And that's really how education then rolled out, and we're still suffering it right now, even in a day and age that I don't think kids really like the factory model. So this potentially allows for some of that innovation to happen. Right now, there are some pilot districts that have been trying this out in various ways. It's not without complication to move to this sort of thing. And as I understand the bill, even if we wanted to do this, we would have to come to you for your understanding and approval to start making some adjustments like this. It really would be quite a heavy lift to make some of these adjustments. We've been with this kind of model we have now for over 100 years. It's anyone who's alive, this is all they know for the most part. So I think it's exciting. Just the idea of having flexibility, I think, is really exciting. In practical terms, how it rolls out and how we would potentially make changes over time, I think is yet to be seen. But that is definitely one that we're keeping an eye on.
Really, really quick, what's that? It's called competence-based learning? Just if I can.
Competency-based learning, yeah. AB 24.
The State Board of Education has spent a lot of time talking about this over the past several years. I think when you hear about the Portrait of a Learner programs that not only the state is rolling out, but a lot of school districts, it's kind of pushing in this direction, which is going to reframe the way we think about education. And it's really hard to wrap your head around it. And so I think that it's something to keep your eye on, because it's something that's moving forward, and what it's going to end up looking like, who knows?
Yeah. And I'll say, I think there actually is quite a bit of support statewide to make this change. And I think other changes in education as well. But the whole idea of those restrictions about, I mean, clearly we have online education and things like that, but the traditional model of how much time is a kid sitting in a classroom, it really can be very a barrier in some ways to trying to do some more innovative things for kids. So we'll see where that goes.
Sorry, one other question. Is that K through 12, or is that just like in?
So I believe it's K through 12. Actually, I don't know. I don't know exactly. I'm not positive. I think it would be, but I don't know if Trustee Walker, if you.
I think that it's heavily focused on secondary level, but it's going to spill down. And I'm sure Tash has had just as many conversations where I think it'll start whatever it is at the secondary level, and eventually our feeder schools will start to be impacted by those changes as well.
Right. I think the goal is we want to have every pre-K student taking AP Calculus as quickly as possible, and this will help us do that. Yeah. One that you may be really interested in, AB 156. So there is another, well, actually there's two other CCSDs in the state of Nevada. There's one that attracts much more attention than others. And there is a bill from Assemblywoman Mosca to potentially increase the pay for trustees. And I think it specifically started with the looking at the Clark County School District, and clearly they've had some they've had some concerns down there over the years, and so they're looking at making it so that their pay for those board members would be on par with the Clark County Board of Supervisors. So their Board of Supervisors currently, their annual salary is about like $96,000 a year. So they're looking to make it so that the school board members would have the same pay. And I think the idea is if you look at it as a wage, which I know you all don't necessarily maybe think of what you're making in this job as a wage. The idea that you'll attract really high quality people potentially, and maybe that would make things better somehow. It does, and I think there's more language in this that I think would even apply to other school districts, but I can't recall.
What NASB has proposed is that it be expanded for all school districts. And I mean, it's hard for any of us to support a pay like that that's going to come out of the school district's budget. But we're proposing that they tie it to a substitute wage, so that trustees are paid comparable to what a substitute would make in that year. So that was our proposal. Since then, they've kind of rolled in, last I heard, voting for the appointed members of the Clark County School Board. So I'm not sure that NASB is going to be able to support the bill, but that's kind of the last conversations that I was to.
Wasn't there some language too that would make the Clark County Board of Trustees full-time employees? I mean, if for $96,000 a year, for have 1 or 2 meetings a month, I'd do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know exactly how they function down there. Yeah.
It states here on the fiscal note is just Carson or Clark County School District. Because the one thing that I would advise then is if it is again another unfunded mandate that for NASB, I think we would all then need to take that to a vote on that as well. Because if it's an unfunded mandate for the school district, it's an absolute no.
That is a big part of the conversation we always have with these kinds of proposals. There's a couple different, when they're finding different ways for these bills, they've talked about a couple different ways, but when it's an unfunded mandate, it's really tough for NASB to support it.
I will say that it seems as though a lot of the major players down in the Las Vegas area, they're a lot of the different stakeholder organizations around the cities, like City of Henderson, City of North Las Vegas, other just education groups as well are very supportive of this change. And knowing how the legislature works and where a lot of the influence comes from, I think there's probably a reasonable chance that there is some kind of change. I just don't know exactly what that looks like. So, another bill that is pretty impactful and so you may have heard the stories if you've been to some of the NASB sessions or the conference. You sit by someone from White Pine County and they'll tell you about their schools and how they're really old and they can't replace them. They just don't have the tax base to do anything. So there's Assembly Bill 224 that I believe is asking to set aside $100 million for rural districts to access to be able to do capital improvement work, build schools, replace schools, that sort of thing. There is a lot of support for this in and around Nevada. Not necessarily, I don't know if there's a lot of interest, say, in Washoe or Clark County in this, but in a lot of rural Nevada, there's definitely a lot of support. I believe White Pine County has been lobbying since 1998 to get more funding for capital projects for their schools. And there was one bill around that time that I think set aside $25 million that was used to build, I think, one school in White Pine, one in Lincoln County. But since then, there has effectively been no money, and they don't have the tax base. Like they could say, oh, we're going to let you raise your sales tax by 10% and well, not 10%. Let's say like 0.5%, 50 cents, and you won't. You can increase your property taxes up to up another $1 or something like that. The tax base is so small that would effectively get them no, it's just not enough money to build the school they're looking at. They're looking at combining their middle school and high school into one new school because I think one of them's 120 years old and one's 108 years old. So they're looking just to combine it more efficient, but it's still like a $60 million project. They can't raise anywhere. We would struggle to raise $60 million. So for them, it's completely impossible. AB 268, you've probably heard about the interest in having universal free meals for all students. AB 268 is that bill. I actually think there may be another bill that is similar on the Senate side, but I don't have that number. But sometimes that happens, and eventually bills kind of get put together into one. So that likely will be the outcome. I have no idea. They have tagged that at a cost of $43 million a year to make that happen. And that's not what it would cost to buy all of those meals. That's what the cost would be to offset what the feds reimburse already, like whatever the balance is to make sure all the kids are free. It's getting that balance of kids. So about $43 million a year. Correct. Correct. There's AB 108, which is an outdoor education and recreation grant. There's actually several bills around outdoor education. It seems to be an interest of several legislators that have brought forth bills, and in general, it's the state allocating, setting aside funds to do grants related to outdoor education, outdoor activities. So I like that sort of thing. So I'm interested to see if that goes anywhere. There already is a little bit of support from the state for outdoor education, but it's pretty minimal. So this would expand the pot of money that's available to do that sort of thing. Senate Bill 90 is setting aside funding to provide for teachers for their classrooms, for supplies and materials for their classrooms, setting aside some extra funds. During COVID, and I can't remember, there was money set aside, and it was accessible through Donors Choose. There was a pot of money put into there that teachers could go into. I think maybe any staff member could go into and apply for funds to help pay for things in school that they wanted. I don't know if this would operate in that same fashion, but the idea that there would be a set aside of money specifically to go directly to teachers to help them pay for things for their classroom. Those aren't as interesting. Assembly Bill 165 is also an outdoor education bill. AB 155 has to do with collective bargaining. Within collective bargaining, there are mandatory subjects of bargaining. This bill would make the ratio of pupils per teacher in the classroom something that would be subject to mandatory bargaining. So that's and a ratio of specialized instructional support personnel. So you may hear about like for counselors, the optimal ratio is 250 students to one counselor. Social workers is 250 students to one social worker. Psychologists, I think, is 750 students to one psychologist per building. So I think it's looking at those ratios and then making that something that would be subject as a mandatory subject of bargaining. There is a bill, I don't have this in here, but there is a bill, if you didn't hear, to get rid of daylight savings time. And that actually may have an impact on us because I always forget which side of daylight savings time is really daylight savings time, so I apologize. But there is a concern about if it's too dark in the morning, having especially like elementary age kids walking to school, even older kids. I mean, it's just not safe, especially during the winter. So that may be something that does require, if that really did occur, that may require some changes from us. So it'll be interesting to see where that one goes. Assembly Bill 49, Washoe County School District has a bill that would, if I understand, for certain states, basically, if you have let's say you have a license to teach in Utah, instead of having to go through the process of reciprocity, thank you, it would just be, look, if you have a license from a specific state, we would just recognize that. One of the problems potentially is that the licensing division at the Nevada Department of Education is fully funded by the fees they receive from people applying for their licenses. And so they wouldn't necessarily receive funding in that process of recognizing other states. So I appreciate it's definitely an effort to try to improve the pipeline of teachers, at least the pipeline in the sense of trying to suck people from other states. So I don't know if this one will have legs or not, but it at least is an attempt to try to improve that. Assembly Bill 205 looks at sex ed, and currently sex ed classes are opt-in, and this would change it to opt-out. So that's one that will have a lot of interest as we go through the session. Yeah, so that's about it. And again, there's a lot more. There's so many going on, but those are some of the ones that have at least been heard and I think have some interest. Just so you know, I representing NAS, I presented to the Joint Assembly Ways and Means Senate Finance K-12 Subcommittee back at the end of February. I gave comments, I didn't present, sorry. But just about what has been presented so far in the funding for education as we understand it in the governor's proposed budget. And it was positive in that after I presented, I was asked to provide the details of what I had been speaking about, because I think there was interest, but the lack of increase in funding. So I think as Spencer presented last time, they were looking at statewide, it was a $2 increase per student, and how, because that number is so low and the way the whole formula works, and it's a little complicated. It's gotten better over the years with some of the changes, but as money is dumped in, it kind of flows through, they call it the waterfall, and there's different tiers of funding that the money goes through. But because there's not much additional funding going in, it's almost like cannibalizing itself. It's like it needs more money on this tier of the waterfall, so it's taking it from this tier and from this tier. So you actually have, as an example, there's one of our streams of funding is called at-risk funding, and it's supposed to be directed towards personnel or activities to support kids that we think are potentially at risk of not graduating high school, and that goes down to kindergarten. There's like a rating system, but it goes all the way down to kindergarten. But that amount of funding is actually being decreased by about 21% from last year, and I don't think from one year to the next that we have much fewer at-risk students. It's just that because one tier of the waterfall needs more money to function properly, they had to take it from somewhere else. So it's like robbing Peter to pay Paul. And so just tried to bring that to their attention. And the big example was if you look at the Clark County School District, and when talking to the legislators, if there's a good example related to Clark and Washoe, it's always good to bring that up because many of them are from those areas. Clark County School District would actually lose $8.3 million, which, given their size and needs, that just doesn't make any sense to me. So anyway, yeah.
With such a small increase, even with them keeping the supplemental pay increases for teachers and support staff, we couldn't keep up with step and column at that rate, correct? So, I mean, we could also be looking at decreases, right? Because people are now used to getting that money every month.
Yeah, I think it's going to force there's still a long way to go in the legislative session, and that's I keep telling people that it's so early. This is the first iteration of a look at what the funding might look like, and I don't think anyone is happy with it up at the legislature, quite honestly, on either side of the aisle, but it just kind of, this is the starting point. So we'll continue to follow that, and we'll see where we end up. I don't have any more right now. If there's any specific questions you have or any other bills you're specifically aware of that you'd like to know more about, I certainly can. But if you, and you probably don't know this, so the Nevada Association of School Superintendents has a lobbyist at the session that basically lives up there from about 7 a.m. to midnight every day during the legislative session. It's this young lady, Mary Przynski, you may be familiar with. She is fabulous. She was superintendent before Rich Stokes here, and just super smart lady that has energy that I cannot comprehend to be able to put up with an entire legislative session and try to stay on top of all of these bills. But she has made incredible relationships with legislators over the year and has just great access to them. And so in terms of having someone who really is able to get inside and have conversations around some of this stuff, I think we're in a really good place in that regard. Washoe County School District and Clark County School District also individually have their own lobbyists, and Mary actually works with them. So they're kind of a team up there advocating for education. So as things come up, pretty much every day I get an email about, I need a response from everyone by 5 p.m. today on this. How many counselors do you have in your building or something like that? But that's just kind of the nature of it, because questions come up and she's trying to be helpful to the legislators, which is a good thing. And then it also helps continue that relationship because they know that they can depend on her. So she has served us very well, and I'm just an amazing lady. So I'm so glad that she's helping us out. That's all I have.
She's definitely knowledgeable.
Yeah.
Molly, did you have a question?
Not a question, just a
Answer.
bill. Just one more thing. I'm going to tell you, it's going to drive him insane by the end of the year. I'm going to just start poking and poking. But AB 139. And so AB 139 makes appropriations to the Department of Education for programs of dual credit.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think they're looking at, and the reason is because I guess I have a question on whether or not the fiscal impact would, I think they're asking the state for the money that would then cover those school districts that offer the dual credits,
Mm-hmm.
is my interpretation. But I would just be curious on exactly how that impacts us.
I can send you what I know. I can ask Mary too if there's any updates on that. There is a lot of interest in dual credit. I see that over time expanding even more, and it's something clearly the state wants to support. But there's a price tag associated with that, and so if they're going to help districts, help encourage them to try to expand that and give those opportunities to kids, I think part of it comes from employer demand as well, because ultimately there's still a shortage in the labor force, and so they want kids that are a little bit more prepared or have the right certifications. There's a bill, I can't think of it right now, but it's related to, actually this is one where there was an amendment before it was ever even heard. So there was supposed to be money set aside to fund the certification tests for CNAs, cosmetology, what was it? And EMT. And then so it went to the hearing, and then as it's being presented, well, we've already done an amendment to it, and now it's only limited to CNAs, but we to pay the fees, it's like somewhere between $75 and $300, I think, per test or something like that, the certification test. So I think there definitely is interest in trying to do more to get kids ready right out of the door of high school to be able to walk into a workplace and have something that gives them the ability to take on some different jobs that otherwise might take 2 years of school or at least 1 year certification or something like that. But yeah, I can look into that one a little bit more and just clarify exactly what's happening.
Something that we learned, just one more thing, something that we learned on the NASB, y'all can use your school district email to track bills. So if you go on to Nellis and register, you can use your school district. So as Superintendent Fueling was writing them down, I was just clicking and, tracking. So yeah, it doesn't take but a few minutes, but you can use your school district email address.
Thank you for reminding us about that, Molly. Okay, good. Well, thank you so much for that update. That's wonderful. Oh, I'm sorry, Mike, you had a question or a comment.
Well, and I just wanted to say real quick, AJ, that I'm glad you brought up Mary. I think one of the benefits I have, because unfortunately I am in a lot of meetings, I see how well represented Carson City really is on these state level boards and committees very regularly. I see you, Mary, even Sue Kima at hearings and meetings. And I know that even when you're not there in person, there's times you pepper me with questions to make sure that the state board discusses. So, but the point being, it makes me feel comfortable knowing that we have so many eyes on the process that really understands education in this community and this state. And so thank you for that. And thank you to Mary and Sue as well for their hard work.
Thank you, Mike. Okay, Mr. Superintendent Fueling, thank you so much. And we will move on to agenda item number 10. And this is discussion on the process for nominating Carson City School District staff for the annual Nevada Association of School Board NASB Awards. And this is for discussion only. So I suggested that we put this agenda item so that we can have an opportunity to review our current process that we have in place to do our nominations for our wonderful, fabulous staff that we have in our district. And I thought we would review our existing process, and then I would also make a couple of recommendations, and of course, open it up for the board to have a further discussion and see what else we can add to our existing process. So what we have, from what I recollect from last year, and please feel free to jump in on what I am missing. So the timeline that I have is that we started the initial conversation for considerations of nominees on May 14. And then we had, on June 25th, we had the approval of nominations. So all of us had recommendations for individuals to nominate for the different categories. And then we also had volunteers to write the nomination letters, which were sent to Renee on the 13th of August. And then she sent them to Rick Harris at NASB on the 16th of August. That's what I have for my timeline. And so I know that we always, are trying to think of individuals that we should be nominating, and we have come up with those individuals. I thought it would be nice to get feedback, input from individuals from the district, and invite those that are in the schools, in the offices, acknowledging, what their peers or their supervisors or their employees are doing, that are going above and beyond, so that we can get input from them, so we can include them on this process, if you will, so that we can all, put forward individuals that are so well deserving of the recognition to the board. So that's what I wanted to propose to the group. And again, I will open it up for further discussion or recommendations on what you guys consider that we should be doing differently. Anybody? Go ahead.
I did look and wait for. So no, I think that's a great idea because I do think that, we're up here, we just really don't know, what's going on in the school. So I think that's a great idea. I would like to go that route, I think, or, explore it, just explore it right now.
Explore.
Going in that direction. My question would be how, to make sure that it's equitable on how we're, getting that information back to us and working with legal counsel to make sure that we can get that information and how we get that information back to us. I think that would be, but, that is something that I've always kind of struggled with, up here nominating when we just don't really know. And so, yes, I think it's a great idea.
Thank you. And we have, approximately 1,000 employees, so I think that we definitely need to get more of those individuals recognized. So anybody else? And then, of course, we'll reach out for your guidance, Ryan, on how we should move forward.
I would agree with doing that concept that you brought up. It is very hard to pick somebody out when we don't see them day to day, but principals work with their staff and other staff works with their other staff. And I think they could give us a really better picture of who's really well deserving. And we can get all the letters, and I would anticipate we would sort through them and make a selection.
Yes, that's what I had in mind, that we would, or we could also identify individuals from the board to serve on a subcommittee, if you will, and collect those letters and then bring some recommendations forward. But again, I'm looking at Ryan because I'm seeking for guidance, for his guidance.
I think for discussion purposes, what you guys are talking about is fine. You're looking to get input from the rest of the employees. We can work with staff. The ultimate decision obviously comes to you for action, but we can help you, gather background information like we would on any other item and help you put it together. And, so I think it's a good idea. I don't have any objection or reason that you shouldn't do it.
Okay, great. Okay, so then do we put it on an agenda? Matt, did you have anything to add? No? Okay. So how do we want to put it on the agenda for our next meeting to look into this further, or no? Yeah, because we're gonna need to.
If the president wants to make a committee, she can certainly do that, and we can look at putting that on an agenda. And we can also have, direction to staff to start pursuing that information for you through a survey or whatever else, but that could definitely be on a future agenda.
I know that in my previous position, the institution sent out a college-wide email to solicit for nominations, and so they would assign an individual that they would send those nominations to. So I'm envisioning something like that, having an email sent out district-wide, and start getting some interest, at least getting the conversation going.
No, I mean, the staff could certainly survey the rest, or your administrative staff could certainly survey the school district staff on, the potential for nominations, just alerting them that the board's going to act on this. And if anybody wants to make a recommendation to send it through whoever AJ wants it to be sent through, it won't go to you as a whole until it's an agenda item. But staff can certainly start working on collecting that information, and that does not require action.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so are we good? Excellent. Okay, thank you. All righty. Agenda item number 11, approval of consent agenda, and this is for possible action.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion by trustee Walker, second by trustee Barner. Any board discussion? See none. Any public comments? See none. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, so agenda item number 12, informational items for discussion only. No action will be taken. And at this moment, I am going to add something that I omitted on my report. I apologize. I forgot to mention that Mayor Bagwell also joined us for the March 2nd event at St. Teresa. And she also was instrumental in enticing or sending a very strong message to the families to make sure that they send their kids to school and how important it is for them to attend school every day. So I wanted to acknowledge that. I appreciate that Mayor was also part of that leadership team. Molly?
Yes, I forgot to thank Superintendent Fueling for attending this afternoon's luncheon.
Yes,
Yeah,
thank you. Thank you. Yep.
Yes, and to Sue Kim as well. And then I got a call from Dr. Przinski. She bought a ticket. She was going to attend, but as you said, legislature, something dropped, and so she was unable to attend. But she sent her apologies because she meant to, she intended to be there as well.
To be there. Oh, that's
But
nice.
thank you. I mean, your support was greatly appreciated this afternoon.
I echo that. Thank you very much. Yep. Okay. So any questions or comments on the agenda item number 12?
I do.
Okay.
I noticed on the staff information for the executive staff that unfortunately Ms. Tasha Fusen has officially submitted a resignation, I guess, or a retirement. And I just wanted to wish you the best of luck. I know we'll have other conversations through the board later on, but it's going to be a great loss for the district, in my opinion. And I appreciate all the work you've done. And I've always enjoyed being able to come to you, and you always have the answer to whatever question I may have had. And thank you. And I don't know if we can rescind her retirement or not. But anyway, congratulations.
Of course. It's not going to be the same without Tasha, for sure. Tasha, we really appreciate you very, very much.
If I could, Mr. Varner, so Tasha's agreed actually we're trying this experiment out to transfer her knowledge into an AI chatbot so we can query anytime we want.
I like that idea. It's all about AI now, so maybe we can do that.
Sorry, legal counsel, just kidding.
Okay. I do want to mention something on the agenda item number 12. Let's see. Letter C, activities and events. It says pre-K kindergarten, new and returning student updates and registration is open to families. Parents can visit their child's respective school from 9 to 2 p.m. and provide the following required information at the time of registration, which is birth certificate and immunization records. They must be 5 years of age on or before August 1st, 2025, and then proof of residency in Carson City. I think that's important to remind the families to register their children. Okay. Agenda item number 13, request for future agenda topics. Go ahead, Mike.
So two things. I mean, a couple years ago, we talked about going to meetings once a month, and we adjusted the meeting time, and we were going to revisit it. And I think that our agendas kind of show that I think we could consolidate those meetings down to once a month. So I'd like to reopen that conversation. And then a second, during orientation for our new trustees, conversation came up about devices with district email for trustees to kind of clean that up for all of us. And I'd like to have that discussion and maybe get that process moving for everybody.
Perfect.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Okay. So any further agenda items? No? Okay. So then agenda item number 14, adjournment. Thank you so much, everyone.
Oh, wait, one more thing.